Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to give you my final thoughts about this Canon EOS R8. We'll talk about the good and the bad. I'll talk about why it's going back today to Amazon. Alright, off we go. Just in general, this is of course the Canon EOS R8 right here. It is sort of a Frankenstein-like camera, right? Because it's got the body of the EOS RP, the smallest in the fleet of the EOS R lineup. Yet it's got the guts of the EOS R6 Mark II, which is an amazing $2,500 camera. It's got the same stuff as the R3 in it, for goodness sakes. And so that was quite intriguing, and that's the reason I bought this. I wanted to see, geez, can I get a $2,500 camera for $1,500? And I got the answer to that question. There's some really amazing stuff with this camera and not so amazing stuff. Let's look at the amazing stuff first of all. So it's a full frame camera. It's got the same sensor, autofocus system, and processor of the much more expensive EOS R6 Mark II. And therein lies its strengths. So picture quality is really, really good. It is just as good, in my opinion, as the R5. And it is maybe a hair better than the EOS R7, which is its kind of sort of competitor. They used to both be $1,500, but the EOS R7 is now down, I believe, to $1,400. They dropped it, or maybe even $1,300. I'll flash that up right now. So that's an APS-C sensor. The R7 is the APS-C sensor. It's got its pros and cons as well. I've done a video on that one. But anyway, amazing picture quality. Let's look at some pictures I've taken with this camera. I also like to print images, and I was worried about it only having 24 megapixels, but I didn't have any trouble. As long as you can get the bird fairly big in the frame, you won't have trouble with that. So that's not a deal breaker for me. Of course, I'd love to have 32 megapixels like the R7 or even 45 like the R5, but I mean, we got to save $1,000 somewhere, and I guess that's where that came from. The other good, it shoots at an amazing 40 frames per second, and it can handle it. I just wanted to throw this in here real quick. This is a series I got of this female bald eagle taking off from a perch in terrible weather. I'm about 65, 70 yards away, but it's foggy out. The sun is coming at about a 90-degree angle from me. Right, you want the sun right at your back. I'm 90 degrees to the direction of the sun rays on this bird. So really tough environment for autofocus. And this first one isn't the sharpest in the world. I mean, that's okay. But now watch these next series. So she took me by surprise a little bit. I was a little late. But look at that first shot. That's really, really sharp, right, for these conditions. Next one. And I'm blowing up to a crop of 300 here. So that's a pretty strong crop. Again, really sharp, right? And this is raw, no DxO, no topaz, no Adobe denoise. So really, really good. And really, for 40 frames per second, this is all I wanted here, but it just keeps going. And you can see that is sharp. I was set up at 1/1600th of a second, so I just wanted this initial jump off the perch. So normally I would be at 1/2500th of a second, and as she starts picking up speed, you can see she's starting to get a little softer here. Let's get her eye back. I mean, it's still fairly sharp. That'll come out fine with DxO3. More speed equals more blurriness. And it's not that it's on the background or anything. You can see the background is still out of focus. So that's just because I didn't set the shutter speed fast enough. Now, one last thing. Let's just use my trackpad here of my computer and watch this. 40 frames per second is absolutely amazing. Those YouTubers who have said this is too fast to be any good, you're doubling positions. Well, I'm not doubling any position there, right? The wings are different in every single one of these frames. So it's absolutely not a waste. So really going to miss this 40 frames per second. It was really hard for me to send this camera back, but you'll see in a little while some of the bad of this camera is just over the top for me. And I'm hoping the EOS R6 Mark II will do the trick. Because unfortunately, my EOS R5, I love that sensor. I love that 45 megapixel sensor, but it's just, it can't autofocus in this environment. And I spend a lot of time studying these eagles, thousands and thousands of pictures with them. And the R5 is just driving me crazy. All right, let's head back to the main video now. It has the same sensor as the R6 Mark II, and it's got a super fast readout speed, faster, way faster than the R7, and even faster than the R5. And therefore, you don't have trouble with rolling shutter or banding. And I don't even have a picture to show you of that. So I had zero problems with banding and rolling shutter with this, albeit I've only had it for a month. I've got 30,000 pictures with the thing at this point. But I don't have anything to show you. With the Canon EOS R7, of course, we have this ash-throated flycatcher that was coming in, did a 360 and took off a perch, and the R7 at 15 frames per second just mutilated it. Flash that up right now. So really happy with that. Movie was great. It shoots at 4K 60p without any crop. It shoots at 180p slow motion, which is amazing. Now there's no IBIS in this camera, and I didn't have trouble with that. I used the software that came with it. There's a switch you can flick inside the menu, and I didn't have much trouble with that. So I was happy with the video performance of it as well. And with regard to the 40 frames per second in high-speed continuous plus in electronic shutter mode, no problems with that. Coupled with the amazing EOS ITR AFX autofocus system, the most recent generation, I mean, amazing. Look at this series of photos right here. Really happy with the 40 frames per second. Super happy with the autofocus system. It is a notch above the R7 in my opinion. 2 notches above the R5 and the R6. Just really happy with those things. But now let's talk about the cons, or the bad with this camera. So the bad with this camera, interestingly, there's 5 things that all start with the letter B for bad. So first of all, the size of this camera. I mean, I don't know how good you can see that, but I don't have huge hands, but my hands just completely cover this camera. And the back of it, with another B, is buttons. They put the AF on button right in the trough where your thumb goes. And so when you grab this thing, your thumb is right over the AF on button, and I keep accidentally hitting it, and I just can't move my thumb away because this thing is so darn small. When you have a heavy lens on, you got to grab this thing, and that's where your thumb goes, in this little groove right here. And so I don't know what Canon was thinking to do that, because that's one of the reasons I'm sending it back. I have to turn that off now because I just can't train my thumb to stay off it when I get excited. So really disappointing. There's no joystick here either. That's also a pain. Of course, you can hit the rectangle button here, and then that activates the cross keypad to act like a joystick, and you can hit the trash can to snap the autofocus point. I've demonstrated that in several videos. But that's just really annoying. There's no joystick. The AF on button being here, I mean, especially the AF on button, that's just, for me, it's like a deal breaker for me. Maybe with more time, I'd finally get used to it, but just not smart planning, Canon, on that one. What else? The battery on this thing. It's got these tiny little LPE batteries. They only last about an hour and 15 minutes for me, maybe an hour and a half. I have to take 4 of them with me for a 5-hour morning shoot. I'm always into the third one and sometimes into the fourth one. So that's another B. So we have body, we have buttons, battery, the buffer. I've demonstrated that in my video. It's just as bad as the R7. You get about 50 shots with it in high-speed continuous plus electronic. If you go to high-speed continuous, that's 20 frames per second. You get about 2.5 to 3 seconds, about 90 shots. I mean, it's okay. I can live with that. Not the biggest deal breaker. So recap, button, body, buffer, battery. And the big one is B for burns. It overheats, guys. I know it doesn't completely fit, but that's how I remember it. It overheats. There was 2 days in the last 30 days that were over 75 degrees here in Northern California that I was out shooting, and both days this overheated. Once it overheated twice. I was on a tripod with it the first time. It overheated. I made a video of it. I'll put a link down below. I put it away. I put the R7 up on the tripod and shot another 1.5 hours. Sun hitting it, no problem. No lights came on. I took it out of my backpack. It was cooled off. I walked back to the car a half hour, and it overheated again. The sun, I was walking into the sun. I mean, I can't have that. I talked to Canon. They said maybe it's a lemon. Send it back in. There's at least three reports under my video of the same thing happening to other photographers. So I think as things heat up here in the summer, we'll get more reports of that. So the AF on button being non-usable for me, and the overheating, it was just too much. So it's going back today. There's some other things as well. There's no in-body stabilization. For me, it's okay because all my lenses are stabilized anyway, so that's not a big deal. There is a switch inside the menu where you can do like a software stabilization for movie mode. That seemed to work fine for me. The other thing is there's basically no electronic first curtain. My favorite shooting mode, well, there is, but in high-speed continuous plus and in high-speed continuous, it's locked at 6 frames per second, which if a bird is sitting on a perch, I mean, that's usable there, but for a bird in flight, it's really not usable these days. You won't get all the wing positions, and I mean, it's not a deal breaker for me because electronic with that fast readout speed of the sensor, I mean, I can deal with that. But I'm just sad that it doesn't have a faster electronic first curtain, because that's the best mode, right? There's no rolling shutter, there's no banding, there's no shutter shock, there's no delay. That is the mode. It's a little loud, but other than that, it's a perfect shutter mode to use. So the viewfinder for me, that's kind of annoying. If I put my eye in the viewfinder, I can't see the entire bottom of the screen, and I can't see the battery life. I have to scooch my eye over, so that's annoying, but I mean, I can live with that. The screen and the viewfinder quality are just okay. They're noticeably not as good as the R5, and again, they have to save money on the camera, so I understand that. But guys, that's about it. So those are my final thoughts on this camera. Now, maybe for just general photography, this would be a steal, a great camera. But for birding, it overheats, and that AF on button and all the B's that I talked about, the battery, it's just not worth $1,500. So I'm going to send it back. I'm going to save up a little more money. I'm going to buy that EOS R6 Mark II, and I'll report on that. Hopefully I'll be happy with that one. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments down below, did you send yours back? You think I'm crazy for sending this back? Have you not had these experiences? Love to hear your thoughts. See you guys in the next video.